Hey everyone, how's it going? Delrith here, bringing you another rapid fire review, this time for the game Escape from Tarkov. Escape from Tarkov is a survival looter shooter made and published by indie developer Battlestate Games and is currently in beta early access. The best example of a full auto val. Whoa! The fuck was that? Now, first things first, Tarkov has been in a beta, as they call it, for several years now, and at this point I think it's clear that it's more of an early access stage than an actual beta anymore. To me, the idea of beta is to bug test and allow people to root out core issues with gameplay, generally without playing for huge extended periods of time, before an early access launch or a launch in general. Tarkov, however, is and has been selling multiple tiers of access and is currently at the point of having an extremely sound foundation that they've been building upon, so I'd consider it early access and genuinely worth review in that sense at this point. Now, I know there's a lot of people on the fence about whether or not the game would be for them, or if it's even worth getting into, or if it's worth investing the time in, and I'm hoping that this short and really generalized to prevent myself looking like an idiot review will help with that decision. Before I get started, however, I'd like to give a special thanks to my buddy Clean. He's arguably one of the most knowledgeable experts on the game itself, and playing through with him to catch up on everything in the recent few patches that I've missed made the whole process go a lot faster and definitely more smoothly. If you're new to the game, I'd entirely suggest checking out his channel and his stream, which is twitch.tv/clean, clean with a K, so Klean, and I guarantee you will learn a lot from watching him. So what is Escape from Tarkov? To put it as simple as possible, it's a first-person shooter that launches players into a PvPvE looting spree across multiple maps for the sole purpose of making money and getting better gear. Basically, it's Black Friday in Russia, or rather a made-up area of Russia, where a quarantine has forced everyone out from the city of Tarkov and its surrounding areas, and there's all sorts of wonderful and expensive things left by the military and other factions to go in and steal. Players will delve through multiple levels, 7 right now with more on the way, working with multiple vendor contracts and completing quests through them, and leveling up skills through utilizing specific things while playing. There's also the Hideout feature that has been added, allowing players to work on a home base that, gives bonuses to all areas of play. Graphically, Tarkov is beautiful. It's one of those games that has been crafted from the ground up, with each level being entirely unique and not at all a copy-paste of the others in any way whatsoever. Each layout of every level has an immense amount of detail, from random objects strewn about everywhere, clutter and posters on the walls, tables loaded with random things, military surplus, you name it, and they've gone and modeled it all out. Interchange, for example, is a massive mall sort of layout with dozens of stores like food joints and clothing outlets and what have you, with multiple levels and escalators just like you'd find in an American counterpart. There's sub-level parking with elevator shafts and pretty much whatever you could think of, with no shortage of unique areas to loot and specific locations to take advantage of. I can actually say that it's without a doubt the highest detail shooter for level design that I've ever sunk a decent amount of time into, and they continue to impress with each major update and content patch, adding more and improving more in that regard. The next map that'll be added is Streets, I believe. It's like the Streets of Tarkov, a massive urban crawl where firefights will be in close quarters, and I'm highly looking forward to it. If there's another thing that Tarkov does really well visually, heck, better than any game of this type, it's the gun customization. I'd go so far as to call it sheer gun porn, with most of the firearms having a shitload of attachments and no shortage of things you can pull off, cram on, and move about. Some of the weapons themselves can be made to look totally nuts, like a Mosin with 4 or 5 flashlights, for example, or an M4 to look like some sort of sci-fi weapon. It's all possible, and the best part is that everything that you put on those guns has a function. Seriously, I've spent hours just fiddling around with attachments and weapons, just seeing what sort of stuff I can toss together and cobble into a working frame. And of course there's metas and the best way to play, but the most fun to me is just figuring it out on your own. There's also cool ass things like thermal scopes that work flawlessly and even have different FPS than what you render, outside of the scope. It's all just super neat with how it's implemented.
What do you need? Guns. Lots of guns.
There's a lot of guns, a lot of things that we're familiar with in America, like Glocks, M4s, HKs, MP5s, and what have you, but a ton of Russian firearms as well. And just seeing the diversity and detail put into every weapon just makes me happy. Sound design, for the most part, is great. Gunfire, explosions, and reverb from those things all being high quality and sounding fantastic. Oh, shit! But there is an issue with verticality that they really need to work out. What I mean by this is that it's almost impossible to tell when something's directly on top of you, below you, or directly above you. It's pretty much all the same. And that's no good given the fact that a moment's hesitation in locating where something's shooting at you means you die. Up! Somebody in the other tower. Instantly domed. It's something they've mentioned that they're addressing in the immediate future, and it's my only complaint in regard to the audio, and they honestly just can't fix it fast enough, as I see even people with 5,000 plus hours, 10,000 hours, just struggling to understand where footsteps and whatnot are coming from at times, and it's just frustrated me a lot as a player. Combat in Tarkov works the way you'd expect a semi-realistic, well, mostly realistic shooter to work, with weapons having various recoils and strengths based on the rounds they're firing and what caliber you're working with. Killing enemy players or dying yourself makes all their loot or your loot available for you to take or them to take and extract with, and I like that dynamic. You can ensure most things to possibly get them back if your body isn't looted, but I wouldn't count on it. It's really not that simple by any means though, with bullets having different penetration values and armors having protection values, like tier 1 through tier 6, as well as various hit zones across your body that will have different ratings of armor depending on what you're wearing, well, except for the legs, which are always vulnerable and susceptible to being shredded by pretty much anything. In Tarkov, what a lot of people will tell you is that it's not what gun you're using, but the ammo that counts, and that's entirely true for the most part. A crappy AK without a dust cover rocking BP rounds will still shred players wearing the best gear in the game, and I really like that. Sure, there's player levels and gear metas and all that, but at the end of the day, anyone can kill anybody. And there's nothing quite like the feeling of wiping out a squad of fully geared players because you picked up a random gun rocking armor-piercing ammunition. Various skills like recoil control will be leveled as you play and have minimal impact on the flow of the game, like, you know, things like how hard it is to control your gun while firing full auto. But again, it's not mandatory and not massive, as the lowest level players can easily kill the highest levels if they get in the right position or know the map well enough to be in an advantage. Really, that leads into the single best thing for me, at least for me in this game, is that the fact that Tarkov heavily rewards you for knowledge and know-how, far more so than your ability to shoot. What I mean by this is that you can be a shit shot but still manage to come out of raids with millions of rubles and equipment each time if you just take the time to memorize where things spawn, the best routes, and timings on when to move. Knowing where the best peak spots are and knowing where specific things spawn, or knowing timings, like I said, on players moving from certain points, all of these little things that you can memorize give you huge advantage over other players who don't, regardless of their gear. Clean's playstyle is a great example of this. That man runs around with a 5.7 pistol and still manages to trash whole groups of geared players, most of which just being because of his knowledge of the maps and his know-how of where to sit and wait, and, you know, maybe a little bit of being a ridiculous shot.
I have a feeling these guys went inside and they decided to go through the bunker. They're probably going to end up coming up. Assuming they're partially inside the bunker right now, looting. Both dead. Seem like little hatchlings.
It's really just a fun game to play through. And don't get me wrong, it's got a ridiculously steep learning curve, but every single player has a chance if you just play enough and learn enough to be effective even without fighting. Just remember that there's two types of players: Chads, who charge gunshots and fight non-stop, and Rats, those that loot and sneak away, and there's nothing wrong with being either. Playing with friends in Tarkov adds a whole new dynamic to the game, as well as the only possible identifier that you can have on your character is a colored armband, and that makes communication entirely key. Sound is the all-important god of this game, and with more people around you, it's really hard to filter who is who, but in my opinion, it just adds to the fun, and I entirely encourage you to give it a shot. That's fucking rude. Don't feel bad if you die from a teammate either. It happens. Even people who have played the game forever make the mistake. Just don't hold it against them and learn the callouts better of each map. You know, white pawn, black pawn, etc., on like reserve, for example, and constantly communicate where you're going with your friends.
Yeah, he's in the train car. Inside is clear. He's right in that train car.
Grenading it? I don't have any grenades.
Okay. Did I just kill you?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting you to be like right there. I
It's
thought
fine,
you walked
it's
out.
fine.
Well,
No, I was on train
buddy.
car. I was on train car. You don't have to just play as your main character, though, and Tarkov offers an alternative, scav runs, which allow you and up to 3 other friends to spawn in as randomly generated AI scavs somewhere on the map. These loadouts on the scavs are completely random, and the idea of this is to allow you to get gear and learn the maps without any risk of losing your own equipment, as the only thing you end up losing if you die is time. How long have I been on stream for? All day, dude. I've been trying to get in this one scav match all day. I really enjoy the scav runs immensely, and I encourage every single person who starts Tarkov, to do them every time they're off cooldown. They're the best way in the game, in my opinion, to learn the maps and get comfortable with how every single one plays, and you get smart enough that you can really earn a lot of money each time you do one. I've seen people walk out consistently with 700k to $1 million plus each time they do a scav run on reserve. It's just playing smart that makes it happen. This leads into another feature currently in Tarkov, the Hideout, and I genuinely enjoyed fiddling with it and upgrading it all for the first time. I hadn't played it quite in a few patches, and going through it all and checking all the upgrades it has to offer was pretty sweet, and all of them I would say are worth it and beneficial. The Hideout has different sections that can be upgraded, things like crafting, medical, intelligence, so on and so forth, each requiring money or items to upgrade, increasing the benefits each time. An example to tie it into the scav would be the Intelligence Center, as it drastically reduces the cooldown on your scav runs, allowing you to do them more, among other bonuses. Another example of an upgrade for your hideout would be the Bitcoin farm, a place for you to store graphics cards that you loot while playing to generate essentially what is free currency, Bitcoins, to sell on the market. Speaking of the market, I think it was a great addition to the game, although it could definitely use some changes, and I really appreciate the freedom it gives to starting players and mid-tier players to buy and sell what they need to. But if I had any suggestions, it would be to make vendor items you purchase not able to be sold on the market, only the ones that you loot in the raid, as there's just major economy issues that have arisen, and a good number of bots as well as some players and exploiters that just exploit the market and buy out the limited supply of items on traders when they refresh, and that's not cool. As far as major negatives in the game, right now Tarkov's biggest enemy is undoubtedly its popularity and the fact that there's just too many people trying to play it. It's grown massively, and honestly, it's the only early access title I can think of that consistently grows with each patch, and this results in a lot of lag, crashes, and just general pains while trying to play. Rip Tarkov is kill. I'm not changing my effort at this point. We're playing Tarkov. If this is the whole stream now, this is the whole stream. I don't care. It's been having a ton of problems the last 2 or 3 weeks, actually over a month now, with queue times. Servers taking upwards of 15 minutes just to find a match, and that's a bit of a bummer, as a lot of players simply die in the first few minutes of spawning in, so the trade-off generally doesn't feel worth it to wait. There's also a plethora of random bugs due to this as well, like characters getting stuck in raids and players being put on what's been coined Tarkov jail, a lockout that prevents you from playing for upwards of an hour and sometimes results in you losing all the stuff that you brought into the raid. Overall though, I gotta say there's really nothing absolutely quite like Tarkov, and the gameplay loop is the best I've ever experienced in a shooter. The risk reward and the rush you get when you find that expensive item you were looking for or get into a drawn out firefight is unparalleled. and with the improvements coming to the game, it can only serve to get better in the future. I honestly can't wait. Eventually, Battlestate has talked about connecting maps and making everything much more massive. And it's going to be a while, don't get me wrong, but I think it will grow in popularity even all the way up till that point in its early access development. I personally plan on playing non-stop. I plan on trying out every patch, maybe even doing more impressions videos and a full review of it when it finally launches in a couple years. But at the moment, I can fully recommend that anyone and everyone give Escape from Tarkov a shot, and definitely buy it if you haven't, even more so when it's on sale, which I think it is right now. If I had to rank the game, I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10 in its current state. With server issues and the uncompleted state of the open worlds and all the maps just holding it back from that legendary 10 out of 10 status it could someday achieve. Tarkov's a ton of fun. It's something anyone can enjoy given enough time. You just need to remember that it will be a rough start and will kick your ass, but the eventual reward of understanding it is awesome, and just gotta say, get out there and try it.
Jumping out the window. Got one. Man, it took the whole mag to kill that guy.
Behind you. Wait, look behind you.
Somebody directly behind me?
Yeah, it looked like someone was literally right behind you. I think your character doubled up from the distance. That was fucking terrible. Or Asval.
Nice. Ow! You did see somebody behind me! Is he dead?
He was in the bush the whole fucking time!
Dude, you did see somebody
I
behind
know!
me. That's so sketchy, dude.
Another note, the community is mostly friendly and the wiki is great for knowledge. Everyone's entirely open from what I've seen to answering questions, and most streamers or YouTubers are super helpful, so don't be afraid to ask for help or ask for information when you need it. It's readily available and given out freely. And once again, I can't thank Clean enough for his help in doing this and getting caught up, so please swing by his channel at twitch.tv/clean and give him a watch and, say hello. Thanks. That's going to be it for this rapid fire review. If you liked it, do me a solid and hit that like button and subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications on new videos in the future. Oh yeah, and if you like the rapid fire reviews or would like to see when I'm doing them live on Twitch, you can head over to my Twitter at AJSA Delrith and give me a follow. I'd appreciate it. Until the next video, this is Delrith and I'll be seeing ya.